Good morning, agents. Let's get to work. This is Agency, a podcast for people who feel stuck, squeezed, overlooked, or simply want more from life. Because agency is simple, having the time, resources, and freedom to choose your own path. We'll talk about money, work, sex, relationships, technology, and the forces shaping the choices that we have. No face, no name, just ideas. Good morning, agents. Today I want to talk about something that is one of the biggest things that determines whether or not you have agency. Money. More specifically, universal basic income. Now, I'm going to start with a deliberately provocative idea. I think the modern cost of living crisis has created a massive loss of personal agency. Think about it. A household could have two adults working full-time, sometimes with overtime, long commutes and childcare costs, and still feel like there is never enough time or money. The question stops being, what do I want to do with my life? And it becomes, what do I have to do to survive? That's an enormous difference. If you have enough money to survive for 6 months without a job, you can leave a bad job. You can retrain, you can start a business, you can spend more time with your kids, you can care for a parent, you can take a risk. But if you have absolutely no financial buffer, you can't. That is a loss of agency. And that's where universal basic income becomes interesting. The idea is simple, right? Give everyone a regular payment sufficient to cover a basic standard of living. No means testing, no requirement to be unemployed, no requirement to prove that you're sufficiently poor. You get it because you're a citizen, and if you want more money, you work. The important part is this: you don't have to work simply to remain alive. Now, is there evidence that giving people unconditional money can change people's lives? Yes. But we should be careful about what that evidence actually proves. One useful example is the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration in California. In a randomized trial, people received $500 a month for 2 years. Researchers found lower income volatility, lower mental distress, better physical functioning, and greater reported agency to explore opportunities involving employment and caregiving. Weston Castro, 2023, if you're interested in the reference. That doesn't necessarily mean that a national UBI will provide exactly the same results, but it does show that regular unconditional income can provide people with greater financial stability and room to make choices. And that's exactly what this agency is about. The OECD makes another important point. A meaningful, universal basic income is expensive. A fiscally realistic system would require significant changes to taxation, spending, or both. So I'm not arguing that UBI is free money, it isn't. I'm arguing that we should ask a different question. What is the value of giving people a financial floor? Imagine a person who can say, I don't like this job, I'm leaving, or I'm going to study for a year, or I'm going to spend more time raising my kids, or I'm going to start a business. That isn't laziness, that's creation of choice. And here's the part I find particularly interesting. If people don't have to accept every job just to survive, what happens to the price of work? Imagine a job that nobody wants. Night shift, dangerous conditions, dirty work, terrible commute, low status. Today an employer may be able to say, someone will take it. But if everybody has a basic financial floor, the employer may have to ask, what would actually make someone choose this job? Maybe that answer is higher wages, better conditions, flexible hours, and more respect. That's agency. And no, I don't think everybody stops working with the UBI either. People work for money, sure. But people also work for purpose, status, achievement, social connection, identity, and enjoyment. The Stockton evidence certainly doesn't support the simplistic idea that unconditional cash automatically makes people stop contributing. A sensible UBI also doesn't have to replace every other form of support. People with disability, high housing costs, or significant care may require additional services or targeted payments. That said, a UBI does enable a simplification of those systems. If everybody has money, the need for creation of special cases should diminish as well. Now that's one of the harder design questions. The other hard question is inflation. If you simply inject a huge amount of additional purchasing power into the economy where housing and other essentials are constrained, prices can rise. So UBI cannot be designed in isolation. Housing supply, healthcare, education, competition and taxation still matter, but the central idea remains. If we can create enough economic value to give everybody a basic floor, perhaps we should, because your time is finite. Money can be earned again and it is relatively infinite. Time can't. So maybe the most valuable thing we could give people isn't simply money. Maybe it's the ability to choose how they spend their time. Less surviving, more choosing, because your life is yours to shape. Less surviving, more choosing, because life should be yours to shape. That's agency. You don't have to agree with me. Just think, question, challenge and choose. If this conversation made you think, like, subscribe and tell me what you think in the comments. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.